Salutations, spooks, spirits, and specters, and welcome back to more Corpse Party, Book of Shadows, as episode 6 continues. An earthquake has poured poor Yuka down into the abandoned shelter, and the unpleasantness that happened downstairs has quite frankly gotten to her. I swallowed my pride, held back my tears as best as I could, and waddled onward.
どこか抜ける場所ないかな。
I see.
扉が開かないや。鍵がかかってるのかな。
Maybe.
おにゃい。他の場所を探してみよう。
It's a set of skeletal remains. Given its tiny stature, it very likely belonged to an elementary school student in life. There's a student ID name tag halfway lodged inside the poor girl's ribcage. Great Harbor Elementary School. Chihiro Tamamura. Well, I know there's 2 bathrooms down this way. Darn. No going in there. Let's check this dead end and then we'll go in the girls' room.
ここトイレかな。お札も貼ってないし。変な匂いもしないよね。
The only bathrooms I'd seen up to this point were unusable. Charms on the door mysteriously sealing the room shut. Bodies hanging in the stalls. But this looked to be a completely normal bathroom. Certainly the most normal I'd seen since getting stuck in this place anyway. There's a loose piece of wood on the ground here.
何かの役に立つかも。中に入れるのかな。
I tried pulling on one of the wood stall doors.
誰かいますか？
I listened carefully for any hint of a response, even going so far as to hold my breath.
でも返事をされても怖いよね。
But there wasn't a single sound to be heard. The entire room was dead silent. The walls were made from packed dirt, after all, and there was a lot of moisture in the air. Effectively, this whole place was naturally soundproofed.
よし、誰もいないみたい。あ、
I backed away from the stall slightly and almost tripped over a fairly sizable crack in the ground, about 5 centimeters wide and 1 centimeter thick.
ここに隠してもいいかな。よいしょ。
Finally, I was able to get out of those waterlogged panties. Despite being alone, I still crouched down and removed them as discreetly as I could. I then stuffed them tightly into the crack I discovered.
よいしょ、よいしょ。全部入らないや。布がはみ出ちゃう。もっと大きく広げられればいいんだけど。どうしよう。そうだ、この木で隙間を大きくすれば。
Use the piece of wood?
ゆかのこんな姿、お兄ちゃんに見られなくてよかった。どうか誰にも見つかりませんように。特にお兄ちゃんには。
Not that Big Brother would be likely to wander into a girl's bathroom. But it was possible, given the circumstances. So just to be safe, I figured it couldn't hurt to pray that that didn't happen.
でも、もうちょっと奥に詰めておこうかな。誰かに見つかったら恥ずかしいもんね。よし。
My underwear was now totally buried and out of sight. There was no way anyone could come across it if they didn't know it was there. Satisfied, I stood up.
スースーしてやだな。でも濡れたまま履いてたらもっと気持ち悪いし。さっきから地震ばかり。ここ大丈夫かな。さっきよりも古い建物だけど壊れちゃわないかな。
I peeked my head out from the bathroom and looked around.
誰もいないよね。お兄ちゃん、お兄ちゃん。
My voice echoed a lot louder than I was expecting. It actually surprised me. Considering the wet dirt walls, I didn't think sound would travel that far.
怖いよ。他にお兄ちゃんの友達とか誰かいれば。臭い。手洗いたいな。
I began walking through the hall once again, this time a bit slower and more unevenly due to exhaustion. Am I able to go back in there?
ここはさっき来たトイレだよね。ゆかのパンツ、どうか誰にも見つかりませんように。
Okay. I'm going to assume this door is locked. That's what I get for thinking. There are thoroughly decomposed remains on the table here. Based on general appearance and what's left of the deceased's clothing, they appear to belong to a very young girl. Her name tag is still affixed to her chest. Great Harbor Elementary School, Mako Sakurai. It's a set of skeletal remains. There doesn't seem to be any way to determine gender from clothing or build alone. But there is a student ID name tag nearby, bearing a traditionally feminine name. Komashiro Trade School, Sakura Matoi. Well, I'm not looking at anything else. What's down this dead end? It's a decayed skeletal corpse. The clothing and diminutive stature suggest this was likely an elementary school boy. His name tag is still pinned to his breast pocket. Great Harbor Elementary School, Hiroshi Takano. Creepy. It's a decaying corpse. Based on outward appearance and uniform, this was likely a junior high school girl. Her student ID name tag seems to have survived intact. Takane Municipal Middle School, Koi Kawahara. And at the dead end, nothing. What's in this dead end? Nothing. The other? It's a newly deceased corpse, practically still warm. It's easy to tell at a glance that this was a female junior high school student. Really? There's a student ID name tag on the ground at her feet. Shobu University Middle School, Michi Muritoshi. Are you sure? That looks like pants to me. Looks like a guy. Maybe I'm wrong. I could be wrong. We're gonna go all the way to the end of the hall before we go in that room. It's a set of skeletal remains. There doesn't seem to be any way to determine gender or age. But there is a student ID name tag lodged in its eye socket, identifying these remains as likely having belonged to a male junior high student. Takine Municipal Middle School, Kyugo, Shibuya. Only one place left. The door to this particular room was shuddering ever so slightly, as if there were a breeze blowing against it gently from inside.
なんか開きそう。
Slowly and hesitantly, I put both hands on the doorknob and started to turn.
入れるみたい。よし、入ってみよう。出口につながってるといいな。ひどい匂い。
As soon as the door opened even a crack, a powerful, horrible stench slammed into my face and twisted around my nasal cavities like a jet of water.
これ、何かが腐った匂いだ。
I was instantly feeling nauseous and lightheaded, as if I were suddenly deprived of oxygen.
もうダメ。早く出よう。水の音。水があるのかな。
There is no water in this room, Yuka. Holding my nose, I stepped back into the room and crept over toward the source of the noise. If there were water here, maybe I could wash my hands, I thought.
お水、どこ？
My extreme thirst came back full force as well. Clean water was the greatest thing I could have possibly found at this point. I accidentally kicked over a bucket, spilling its contents onto the ground in front of me. Countless flies immediately flew out from the overturned bucket and began swarming all around me. Their buzzing wings sounded right up against my ears as if they were attacking me. I let go of my nose and began flailing my arms wildly, attempting in vain to drive them away.
前が見えないよ。
As I haphazardly stumbled forward, I found my foot splashing in shallow liquid. Mere moments later, my hand came in contact with a wall and brushed against the switch. I heard a faint clicking sound, and then... the lights blinked on, and I got a clear look at the room I was standing in.
何？ここ。死体。
A large portion of the floor had been dug out into something resembling a pool, which was filled with stagnant, discolored water and dismembered bodies. The bodies were decomposing a lot faster than they naturally would, on account of the wetness. Most of them had swarms of maggots instead of faces. Several bodies had actually washed up on the ground outside the pool as well. Those few that still had limbs looked like they may lose them at any moment. Their torsos were all swollen and black, and everything else was bone white.
なんで死体がこんなに集まって。
The closest body was spurting a sappy mucus from its nose and mouth and staring at me with an ugly, mean expression. The thick fluid coming out of it was reddish-brown in color and seemed to be a disgusting mixture of blood and dead bugs.
何の音?
Some sort of huge door high along the top of the wall opened up, and I could clearly feel a breeze blowing through the room. It was a trash chute?
ここを登っていけば元の場所に戻れるかな。今度は何の音? 何か聞こえる。近づいてくる。
I was afraid of what might be coming through that hole, so I put some distance between it and myself. Something heavy fell from above and splashed into the pool, spraying my face with rotten, stagnant water.
Stay!
The body that had just fallen into the pool of water was wearing a school uniform. As soon as it touched the liquid, it began bubbling and melting into it as if it were a bag of ingredients tossed into a stew pot. One of the poor victim's lungs floated to the surface, giving the whole scene even more of a sick soup-like appearance. I dragged my wet foot on a dry part of the ground for a second or two, then made a dash for the door. As soon as I was back out in the hall, I fell to my knees in shock. I couldn't even move. The smell of death and decay was still sticking to me, and still trying to snake its way into my nose. It was all I could do not to throw up on the spot. I hadn't eaten anything for hours, so I'm not even sure what I would have actually thrown up. But I still felt like I had to, more strongly than ever before. Maybe it would have been best just to let it come out. I'm sure I would have felt better afterward. But I honestly didn't want to see my own vomit right now. Not after all the other disgusting things I'd seen. I'd had enough.
どうしてこんなことになっちゃったの?
At times like this especially, I really longed for my big brother. If only he were here with me. I cried out for him as if in prayer.
お兄ちゃん、助けて。助けて。動けないの。誰かいるの？誰かいるの？あっ。苦しいよ。
There was a little girl here with arms outstretched, begging for help. I rushed over to her side.
どうしたの？大丈夫？
She was faintly glowing.
この子、幽霊？お腹が苦しいの。お胸が熱いよ。とっても辛そう。ユカにできることは。ここ、怪我はしてないみたいだけど、痛むの？痛いよ。
All I could do for her was offer physical comfort. If I rubbed her back, maybe she'd feel better.
ありがとう。ごめんね。こんなことしかできなくて。ちょっと楽になったの。そう？よかった。
The girl grimaced again, as if she were experiencing some new pain all of a sudden.
まだ無理しない方がいいよ。ね？うん。あなたもここに迷い込んだの？わかんない。気がついたらここで倒れてたの。気がついたらずっと寂しかった。そっか、一人で寂しかったね。よく頑張ったね。
I gently brushed my hand against the little girl's face, wiping away her tears. I'd only just met her, but I already really felt for her. She had it a lot worse than I did.
あなた、お名前は？幸子。幸子。幸子ちゃんっていうのね。うん。私はゆかだよ。持田ゆか。ゆか？ゆかお姉ちゃん？お姉ちゃん？お姉ちゃんか。なんかお姉ちゃんって呼ばれると照れちゃうなって。
I took Sachiko's tiny little hand in my own and pulled her to her feet.
よし、立てるね。
Sachiko's hand was so thin and light compared to my own. Not just light, it almost felt like it was completely weightless.
やっぱり幽霊なんだ。
Sachiko noticed me staring at her, and I must have quite a look on my face. This seemed to bother her, so I did my best to force a smile. I'm sure she was worried I'd leave her all by herself again, and I wanted to make sure she knew I was here for her.
どうしたのお姉ちゃん。
Okay. I don't know if this is going to end in a few minutes or if I have time to do another full video. So, like in the previous episode, where I felt the same way, if this does end in a few minutes, I'll just tack it on. But otherwise, thank you all very much for watching, and ciao for now. Ciao for now.